you guys are called. So it's all yours.
All right, perfect. My name is Greg Worth, and I'm part of Team One, which is myself, Willie Blackman, Megan Burkhart, Sabina Grant Spencer, and Willie couldn't be with us here tonight, but the rest of us are going to talk about it. And this is something that's kind of started. We began with looking at this in before, and we were kind of elaborating and wanting to take this to the next level. Just how can we develop the current online delivery model for education, higher education specifically, and move forward. If you could please move through the screen. Thank you. Just for some quick stats, we started with the problem, so we could kind of genesis out of that is, we see a lot of people moving, and you look at it, here's a U.S. News and World Report article stating that 1 in 4 students took an online course in the fall of 2012, 5.4 million online learners total. And as we all know, we all are in it, is not only are students taking more online higher education courses, but we're also moving towards more online programs. We experience that every day. Go ahead, please, forward the slide. And but one of the things that is a problem is it seems to be reporting for some research that students' retention rate in online programs is a lot less. And so I threw in a couple of statistics here. The top one is from Hope Baker. It's from a U.S. News article as well, that she teaches at Kennesaw State, and she says that she sees a 15 to 20% lower or she loses 15 to 20% more students than she does in classroom. And then Tinto, as cited in 2008, suggests that academic as well as social integration are the primary predictors of student success. So maybe, one of the pieces that's missing in the online education platform that's today, especially from an undergraduate, is having that social integration into the learning. And I know we do that a lot here with the way that we set things up and create collaborative, but we were kind of looking at how can we take this to the next level? How can we expand on this idea? And this kind of brought us to this idea of our challenge statement. Would you please forward, sir? Thank you. And our challenge statement is to create a virtual learning environment that mirrors an actual college campus while providing an increased accessibility and flexibility for staff and students. Extensive personalization options, and realistic academic, social, and the key there is the emotional interactions, right? So we want to take the basic real life experience and everything that's true to a campus, and we want to integrate that into a virtual learning environment. And so we're going to kind of talk about that and kind of give you our prototype as we move forward tonight. Once again, one of the key things here is it's the academic, it's the environmental and social piece. Pellis 2014 states that virtual reality is the classroom, in the classroom yields higher, that's supposed to be levels of emotional behavior and cognitive engagement. So what we're seeing is by using virtual reality in the classroom, they're having higher levels of cognitive, behavioral, and emotional engagement, which I think is very interesting than traditional online education. And another piece here is Artino suggests that students using virtual reality have a higher motivational behaviors than students in traditional online. So by bringing in that virtual piece, you have a higher motivational piece behavior, and people are working harder and trying harder. And so this brings us to our idea of the virtual campus. And as we go through the virtual campus, what we want to do is take a real campus and lay it out in a virtual world. So you can actually, when you need to go to the library, you will navigate yourself to the library and move through from that piece. When you want to go to the classroom, you can direct your avatar and go to the classroom. And please go ahead and forward the slide. Students will control their appearance with an avatar. So one of the things that they'll actually have an avatar, and then they will also have a little emoticon buttons that they can convey their affect display or their emotional level at the time by selecting how they feel. And that will generate on the face of their avatar, because we think that not only does it need to be virtual, so you have some type of presencing, but then the emotional piece needs to be there as well. Couple more slides, one more. And here's just a copy of maybe a mock-up of what the virtual classroom would look like from the student's perspective, and then this is what it would look like from the teacher's perspective. And note that these two people look very apathetic, and it's coming across on their face, but that the professor would have, or the students would have, the opportunity to say, hey, I'm getting this, I'm not getting this, just like we do in real life. And by doing that, there's more communication that's happening non-verbally. Even though it is premeditated, if you will, and you're opting into it, it still helps bridge that gap. Now I'm going to turn it over to Megan, who's going to kind of walk through a little bit further on the system.
Okay, so what we are looking at, and just to piggyback off of Greg a little bit, is to give students a realistic campus experience, but virtually. So for any of you, I happen to teach high school. Anybody who has a high school student, teaches at the secondary level, knows that virtual reality, any type of gaming is very popular, catches attention with teens. So we're trying to make this as virtual and interactive as possible. The other benefit of doing this is that it makes it more available to students who may not have the means to attend a university across the United States, may need to live at home for various reasons. So what we are coming up with and what you're kind of looking at would be basically a screenshot of what this campus would look like, that when you log on to your program, you're going to have a virtual dorm room. And we're kind of viewing this as being the home base for each student. So in that dorm room, you might keep virtual textbooks, things that you need. It might be a meeting place for you. Basically, this would be like your welcome screen. So every student would have their own dorm room. It would be customizable. So they truly feel like they're kind of part of that college-based experience. If you'd move forward, please. And one thing that we really want to focus on that some online programs may be lacking, and to help with engagement, is to really bring socialization into the experience that students have. So, for example, you could have a group meeting in your dorm room. You could have a group meeting at the library where you can bring your avatar and your class members can bring theirs into the group. So it's more than just an online conversation. You're truly having interactions with your avatars. And you can have facial expressions, and you can be doing the audio like we're doing now. And so it's a little bit more collaborative and a little bit more personalized. Next slide, please. Okay, we also are coming up with the idea, in order to make it more collaborative, of bringing in the fun aspects of campus life. So if there's a sports team, if they have a sand volleyball court on campus, whatever the actual campus looks like, we basically want this to be a mirror image. So if there's a sports game, you could sign up and you could play football. Okay, so you would have this almost like a video game that students can engage in. So there's more to the virtual experience than just the online course component, and that they're truly getting the feel of being engaged and part of this community. Next slide, please. Okay, and this slide really shows kind of what the crux of this campus would be, and as it should be probably at most campuses, is the library. And at the library, you would have the opportunity to interact with a virtual librarian. You can check out resources, and this could be your textbooks, this could be journals, journal articles, and checking these out in the virtual library will then place them on the bookshelf in your virtual dorm room. So you physically can see them in that setting. Additionally, this would be a good place for collaborative group work, a place where you can find different resources that you might need for projects. So this could be considered kind of a meeting place, a place to gather all your information that you may need for projects or classes or things like that. Next slide, please.
And so with that, we'll have our virtual bookshelf. Students will be able to customize virtual bookshelves with pre-populated class materials. Students will be able to sign out books. They can browse other classmates' books, and they will be able, the bookshelf will be located in their dorm room, as we referenced earlier. And even when they have meetings with, in their dorm room with groups, they can share the materials on their virtual bookshelves. So the virtual bookshelves, again, will be customized, designed specifically for them, whether it's their textbooks that they need or their books of reading pleasure. Next slide, please. So Team 1, we would like to create a virtual learning environment on a college campus that will be flexible for staff and students and offer personalized options, realistic academic, social, and emotional interactions. The virtual learning environment will provide higher engagement, higher retention, more socialization, and it'll be easy to navigate. And most importantly, as we move into different new generations of learning, it will be sustainable, something that everyone will have access to, but it meets the needs of the various learning styles of individuals that are now being exposed to different ways to learn and wanting to have, access through learning through different forms of technology. Basically, we're going to have a new wave of active learners. Thank you. And this was Sabina speaking.
Yes, good. So, wow, that's kind of interesting. Just my first comment as I think about this. So for example, you would create virtual Drexel.
Yes.
And what would happen would be is that anyone in the world could come to virtual Drexel and would function almost like, remember how Second Life used to operate?
Yes.
Yes, Second Life is what we looked at a lot. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because I'll tell you something. We used to at Drexel have a Second Life island, but believe it or not, someone got into it and destroyed it.
Oh, wow.
They hacked it. But as I was thinking about this, did your team, since there would probably be clusters of people physically in geographical areas where you would build in physical hubs where people could get together and meet. Did you talk about that or think about that as a possibility?
I mean, one reason we really like this idea is because it makes college campus learning accessible in areas where they may not have anything close by. So it's not a case where they could live at home and drive to a campus.
Right.
I think having something like an internet cafe or, like a little hotspot available in different communities would be beneficial, because if there's internet access problems or things like that, there's a place that they can go. I could see that being
part of this.
Yeah, I could see being part of it as well, but and even more so, I could see where pods of people from a small community come together and sit there and interact with the professor that's in Philly, but be in I don't know, Paducah, Kentucky, you know, and so I'm just throwing something out.
Yeah.
And therefore, that could give them the collaboration for having small pods as well. But when we were really thinking about this, we were thinking about it for how can we create that engagement and create some of the more of the social pieces to the online or learning environment so that undergraduates don't miss the undergraduate experience. Now, graduate students, people like us, it's different. And then the second piece that we were really looking at is how can we simplify it? So instead of, okay, so here are your books, go get your books. These are the classes I'm signing up for. The bookshelf is going to populate, and it's a degree, it just happens for you. When you need to make a payment or you need to check on your financial aid, there's one place that you go. It's not go to this link or call this number or whatnot. It's about helping people navigate the challenges that the online ambiguity creates and gives them a concrete place to go.
Yeah, and my comment was, again, as I think I told you guys, that Otto's doing his second MOOC, and there's 41,000 people on it. and what makes his very unique, it's nothing like this in terms of what you guys are doing, but what makes his very unique and makes it real are the hubs that are being created around the world.
Right.
People physically get together and then share that. So that's why I was and not to belabor this, but something for your team to think about as it gets into the final development of this.
Right.
So other comments, feedback on this?
I had a question. If in this virtual U, as a student, I sign, I have a list of courses I have to take for the program that I'm in, and I sign up for one at a time or whatever. And the bookshelf in my dorm room is populated with maybe the articles and the textbooks, or even PowerPoints that are used in that course. I think my question was, if I'm in virtual U and I populated my shelf with the first course that I'm taking, am I then able to click on that book or article and read it?
Yes.
Yes, just like you would in Apple, in your iBooks or on Amazon or things of that nature.
You
But
don't need to read
it's
that.
putting that piece out and it's putting it back into the Drexel, or in this case, the possible Drexel. Drexel didn't sell me my books. I bought my books from Amazon this semester. So it would allow them to sell the books directly to the student.
Okay, but they would be accessible when you're working in your dorm room. You're actually clicking on an article and it opens up in a PDF file on your computer and you can work from there.
Yes,
There
and
you
it's
go.
24-hour access.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. And I can see, the hubs are one thing, but I can also see the value of the vast distances that some people have to go to find an area where there could be a hub, or the university itself having this available to you at your house,
Mhm.
and
Right.
leaving email notes to the students in your class. You might have a cafeteria or a social room, and say meet me in the social room at 4:00, and you might then interact with students over a project you're doing, or just hang out.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just give them the opportunity to hang out, like, hey, I'm not from here. I'm from New York State. I have one brother and one sister, and you just have that interaction. I found that when I did my dissertation using Quest Atlantis, that these kids in Western Canada didn't have physical access to each other, but they were online in Quest Atlantis all the time, not necessarily questing. They may have been questing and get their day's worth of questing done, but then they'd leave little notes for their buddies who were anywhere from Canada, United States, Australia, and they'd meet in a certain world, and in your case, a certain social room.
Right.
And
Right.
these kids would just explore and do things. So I thought, that'd be a great way for you guys to get together to have a social room.
So
Right.
other teams, I want to get some other people from other teams to give feedback into this or ask questions.
Well, I like the fact that it could start out small and become gigantic. There's no top end to this.
Well, just think, it could link into your boat.
Exactly.
No, I'm serious.
That's why we have those micro communication centers, so they all can.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm serious about that. What do you
I
say?
am too.
There's your curriculum when you're going for funding.
So we have collaboration between two teams already.
I like it.
So
Well, the other thing I think it's good about is, and then I typed this, Michigan does this, but if I'm in Pennsylvania and I wanted to look at going to school in Hawaii, if I could somehow take a virtual recruiting trip without actually taking that trip, obviously, to Hawaii, then I think this has some merit in doing virtual reality recruiting trips.
Yes.
And this is an awesome idea, and I love it. And yeah, I think it's a way for you to open up a myriad of avenues for kids to go to school literally anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Just to follow up with what Ron said, I mean, our idea basically is that anything that a traditional campus offers, you could get from the virtual university. So students who typically go on a campus tour in the fall, they can sign on and there's a tour guide waiting for them to go do that. So yeah, all of those opportunities would be available.
Sure.
Anywhere. I mean, you're not prohibited by geography at all, which is awesome.
So you'll have a whole new level of NCAA issues. I was thinking about it. No injury in sports anymore.
Exactly.
Well, now the avatars don't get injured.
That's right. See. So
But
any
I know
comments?
when I was looking at Quest Atlantis, just like you were saying, going on a virtual tour, I signed up for training as the person doing the research. I had to go through training of Quest Atlantis, and the person running it from Australia took, there were about a dozen of us avatars going on the virtual tour of the worlds in Quest Atlantis, rather than me by myself trying to find my way around. He took us through the virtual worlds to see, and that's just like you're talking about, tours of different campuses.
Yeah, and just to mention that for all of you, particularly you guys in team, one who's doing this virtual, you go out to, I'm pretty sure it's still questatlantis.com. And if you want to see some very interesting learning environments,
Yeah.
all avatar driven, and as Dawn said, she did her dissertation using Quest Atlantis with emotional support kids. And it was really fascinating in relationship to that. So there are some things out there, but I have not seen this at the level that you guys are bringing it to. And actually now, after listening to the first two, I am convinced I'm going to put these out in public.
I think so.
Yeah, definitely. I am going to put these out in public. And I'm also going to let Otto Scharmer know this because they're doing a lot of prototyping right now in his class, and just alert people that if they're interested in going to see some prototyping that's coming out of this class, to go and look at your first go around of prototypes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely.
anything else for to help Team One think about where it's going? My one suggestion would be is to do the same thing I said to the other team, is maybe create when you do your final presentation, maybe the day in the life of what it would look like.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question. This is Catherine. Did you guys consider the virtual campus security?
In terms of, you mean like someone hacking in, or who's not part of the program?
Oh, I will pretend I'm somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't
I
we
think
all
there's always-
pretend that we're other people all the time?
that's the point of making your avatar. I mean, I think that's definitely, there's security measures that have to be put in place. You're obviously going to be getting a unique login. I mean, but there's going to be a cost involved. So, I mean, if somebody wants to pretend that they're a virtual student and pay the cost, I think that makes it a little bit more unlikely. But yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be login measures, and similar to what we use for our program here.
Yeah, and testing would be where you would want to maybe the current testing procedures of maybe where it goes away from the avatar and it goes to taking a camera shot of the person while they take the test. But we have that now, but not all online education programs or any higher ed programs enforce that, and they just usually trust the student to be the student. So I mean, the same thing could be said about the format that we have today. So
Yeah, and I think what Kathleen's bringing up is kind of interesting because as I said to you, Drexel used to have a Drexel Island in Second Life, and we literally would use that, and we would do conferences in it. And what was interesting, as I said, and what was so surprising, which even blew the mind of the people at Second Life, they had no idea how these people got in and literally hacked that island and destroyed everything that was there.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but actually, it's no different than what's going on. You know, kids are hacking the NSA,
Right.
and the NSA is hacking us, or whatever. But
Right.
but my point is that is an interesting component to deal with cybersecurity as we move more and more towards these virtual environs.
Yes.
And the other thing you should think about, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the work of Shirley Turkle. She does quite a bit of writing about what is going on with the virtual world and what it's doing to people in terms of reality. And I know Peter Senge is really cautioning people about this, because one of the things you guys brought up, and I thought was kind of unique with this, is that virtual dorm where people can get together in there and can interact. But you also should think about what type of mental models begin to emerge about who I am as a person in virtual worlds. So it's something just, the team should consider and maybe even want to talk about, not necessarily put it in your final project, but it is an issue, I think, that is becoming more and more, of a concern for people as we begin to look at that. So go into any restaurant and watch people when they're at tables, and many times they're there with their device.
Right.
Right.
So it's an interesting concept. So anyway, anything else for this group?
Well, I just wanted to mention another thing to parallel it with Quest Atlantis again. There was always somebody on duty in all of the worlds of Quest Atlantis, making sure that there was appropriate behavior, appropriate language, and even some of the students had jobs to be monitors while they were on there. And I asked the one student, did he report this to his teacher? And he said, no, it didn't require that, but it required me going over the rules again. So that person didn't get us kicked off. Because the caveat for students in Quest Atlantis is if there's inappropriate behavior, you are not allowed to log on. You're done. You may not use the program anymore. And that, a monitor issue might be something they could consider.
Okay, so we're a little bit past time. I'm going to stop the recording with this